Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with their bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
of all the rules you break.
We've had enough
of all the money you make.
We've had enough.
No more life at stake.
We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait.
Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
of all the rules you were breaking.
We had enough
of all the money you were making.
We had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We had enough.
This is a proclamation.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, just roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough. All the money you're making.
We've had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We've had enough.
This is the proclamation.
We've had enough. Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice. We've had enough. Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price. We've had enough. Philando, Breonna, George Floyd. What? We've had enough. So many gone. How can we fill the void?
How can we feel?
We've had enough. John Crawford, I know you've heard. We've had enough. Sandra Bland, come on and take a stand. We've had enough. Sean Bell, what the hell? We've had enough. Freddie Gray, did you hear what I said? We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Tell somebody that we're here. Tell your friends to tune us in right here on Facebook, or if you're watching on YouTube. If you're at YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like it. We want to grow it. We've got a very small audience right now, but the journey of 10,000 miles starts with a single step. We're taking that step with you today, and we ask you to step with us, join or subscribe and share this program with your networks. If you're on Facebook, cool. Glad to have you there. Beauty of this is that we're connected with our parent organization, the Black Press of America. We're members at Inside News. We're members of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, NNPA. NNPA is an organization of over 200 weekly newspapers throughout America. And we are proud bearers of the torch of freedom, the torch of resiliency, the torch of mastery in our community and our culture. We believe and we demonstrate the power of belief in the principles of dignity and of democracy. And we have chronicled, described, documented the fearlessness with which our people have trod towards freedom since setting foot on these shores. So if you're checking us out, you're part of the Black Press of America Network, Black Press USA. Thank you there. We can take comments. If you have a comment, put it in the chat. We'll try to acknowledge you. I see my friend Michelle Madison is there. Good afternoon, Sister Michelle Madison. Thank you. I appreciate your comments, your presence, and always your insight. Others, welcome to join us and post your comments. We want to hear from you. And, help us grow this. Well, today, Mondays, we typically engage local and national politicians on the issue of politics. What is our community doing? What are we saying? What are we organizing for? And Minneapolis and St. Paul have important races coming up. We've been focusing of late on the Minneapolis City Council races and on the mayor's race in the city of Minneapolis. And on Mondays, we typically invite community agencies, organizations, and candidates to gather with us to bring their platforms forward, their interests forward. And as always, this is about conversation. It's just friends sitting around talking about things that matter to us, that our lives matter, and talking in a way that we're sharing this intimate conversation with you and the rest of the world via social media. So again, thank you for being here. Today, I'm pleased to have Mickey Moore back again. Mickey Moore is a candidate for 9th Ward in South Minneapolis. Mickey, why don't you come into the main studio? And also Adway Pugh is here. Adway Pugh is here on behalf of candidate Kathy Spann, who is running for office in Minneapolis. My friend and co-host is here from Harrison neighborhood, Andrew. Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Al. Hawthorne neighborhood.
I keep saying Harrison. I did that about 5 times, so I'm going to get Harrison scrubbed out of my mind and make sure I say Hawthorne.
No bias against Harrison.
Well, the point is that, all of these neighborhoods are great neighborhoods in North Minneapolis. Harrison is a wonderful neighborhood. Hawthorne, a powerful neighborhood, because what you and our colleagues over there, Diana Hawkins, are doing in partnership with us. Diana, how you doing? Good to see you.
I'm fine. How are you? How is everybody today? Welcome back, Mickey. Hi, Outway.
Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Diana.
Well,
hi, Andrew.
Let's jump right in. And I want to go back to Mickey. First of all, Mickey, as always, I ask candidates to always introduce themselves. Though you did last time you were here, maybe new listeners, new viewers. So start from fresh and talk about yourself and why you're running and the seat you're seeking to win.
Well, thank you so much for having me back, Al. I always appreciate this opportunity to speak to the people, especially your listeners. My name is Mickey Moore. I'm running for city council in the 9th Ward. For anybody that doesn't know exactly how our wards are formed these days, they keep changing a lot. But the 9th Ward is essentially Lake Street from the freeway up to about Minnehaha Avenue and several blocks north and south of that. So it encompasses Powderhorn Park. It encompasses areas like 38th in Chicago. It encompasses neighborhoods like Longfellow, East Phillips, Cochrane neighborhoods, Central neighborhood. So it's an important district. It's a meaningful district. It's a very vibrant, culturally diverse district. We have a huge immigrant population. We have a huge indigenous population. We have just a very diverse and communities and cultures, and it's really an honor to be able to even attempt to represent a group like this. It's really been a new experience for me because I'm not a lifelong politician. In fact, I really, as most people do, politics is kind of distasteful these days. And so it's not something that you're anxious to be a part of all the time. It's not something that you seek out. But in this case, when we took a look at the situation and the critical nature of the rise in crime throughout the 9th Ward, the distressed business situation throughout the 9th Ward. And the 9th Ward is home to some of our most important commercial districts. Some of our most critical business districts are up and down Lake Street. And when we looked at the homelessness situation, and everybody in the city of Minneapolis recognizes and remembers how critical the homelessness situation got last summer when it moved from the Little Earth area and that Cedar and Hiawatha area where there was that huge encampment. And then people started camping out at the different parks, including Powderhorn Park, where there was another huge encampment. And those people have been shifted around, but they're still out there. We haven't dealt with that problem. Just like we haven't dealt properly with the affordable housing problem, which greatly affects our Ninth Ward. So there's all these critical issues. And when we looked at these critical issues and saw some of the other candidates who were running, it became clear to us that we really needed to step up and provide somebody that had some experienced and professional, disciplined history as a leader in the community. I'm a businessman going back to the 90s. Some of my operations have been extremely successful. We started off with just one hair braiding salon, the Braid Factory, back in 1996. Now there are 45 or 50 natural hair care salons all over the Twin Cities. That's an industry that we started. Natural hair care wasn't allowed back in the 90s. The state of Minnesota took a view that was extremely biased, racist, discriminatory, whatever you want to call it, but they didn't let black people get their hair done the way black people wanted to get their hair done. And that was their position on it. It was extreme and it was wrong. We challenged that. We fought that for years. Finally, the state had to come around. Now, natural hair care is a legitimate profession, and we see locations all over the Twin Cities employing some of our hardest to employ community members, and it's really a success story. And it's the kind of thing that we can bring forward. It's the kind of example that I like to bring forward when we talk about why we can have a better effect on this community going forward than what we have seen in the past. So not to get too far into the weeds on the ideas of hair braiding, but it's just one example of the kind of track record that I bring to bear when we start to format the positions and platforms that we expect to move forward with for the Ninth Ward and changing things for the better, allowing everybody, all communities, to feel like they've got a seat at the table and they've got a chance at achieving their idea of the American dream.
So, first of all, how are you running? Are you running as an independent, as a Republican, or as a Democrat? What's the structure of your campaign? Where have you situated yourself? And give people that might not know a sense of the process between now and Election Day in the fall. What's going to happen? How does the process unfold?
Yeah, Al, well, we're right in the thick of it. Personally, I was born a Democrat by virtue of my mom and her activism and her liberal positions. I was a Democrat in the womb. So I'm a lifelong Democrat, like most people that are born in Minneapolis. And but I'm a pragmatic, progressive Democrat. And that means that I don't care nearly as much about the partisan aspects of politics as I do about the solution-oriented aspects of politics. I don't care where ideas come from. If they work, let's put them to use. If they help people, let's get them into our policies and into our programs. So I consider myself to be nonpartisan and unbiased, but I am a Democrat, and we're actually involved right now in what they call the DFL endorsement process. It's the only endorsement process in Minneapolis because, like I said, everybody is a Democrat. And so it's the only endorsement process we have here. And right now it's the caucus registration and the delegate attendees at the convention process that we're going through. In Minneapolis, they're having a few hiccups with their process, but it's the people who registered to be involved in the caucus are now able to choose their delegates, and going forward to the convention in about 3 weeks, they will be voting for who they want to be endorsed. Now, in the Ninth Ward, we have 6 candidates, I believe, and it's unlikely that anybody is going to be endorsed as the DFL endorsed candidate. So whoever chooses to will just keep running through until November in the general election, and we'll let the voters decide. I know other wards probably have incumbents with a little bit of a stronger supporting field, and they may have endorsements in some of those other wards. But we're thinking that the Ninth Ward won't have an endorsed candidate, and everybody will have to choose on their own if they want to continue their campaign until November or not. I know we've already made the commitment to continue on to November regardless of the endorsement process.
Is there a primary as we used to know it? I think that has been set aside in part by the ranked choice voting strategy. But why don't you describe that first of all? Is there a primary as we used to have it, or is it simply the endorsing convention then to the general?
Great point, Al. Exactly right. We do not have a primary in these local elections anymore. Now we just have what's called ranked choice voting, where people can vote for their first, second, and third choice. And through some process and some formula, depending on who gets the least amount of votes, their second choice, the people who voted for those goes to their second choice, and their second choice votes are allocated amongst the remaining candidates. And if there's still nobody that's got over 50%, we take the lowest vote getter and divide their third choice votes up amongst the rest of the candidates. And eventually you have to get one candidate that has over 50% of the vote. And it's a great system for allowing people to enter that don't have the kind of support base that maybe some other celebrity candidates or historically involved candidates might have. If you don't have a long history in politics, you can still get involved in a local race, because this ranked choice voting system allows people to go all the way through to November and get people to support them at the voting booth, either as a first, second, or a third choice. And it really makes a difference in the kind of representation and the kind of field of candidates that we get out of the community.
Talk about, so you described yourself as a business person, business owner, and that your ward along Lake Street is really covering several major business nodes, I think is the right word for it. Talk about the business climate in your ward and what your vision is for increasing, improving business, access to business by the residents, by shoppers and consumers, and ownership of business, participation in the economy, particularly by African and African American residents of the community and or people of color. And what's behind it is, how do we develop, from your point of view, viable, strong, sustainable economies in communities of color? And I say that against a backdrop of feeling that our people have been effectively and consistently kept out of opportunity, kept out of business possibilities, and that is one of the things we have to address and change. So what are your thoughts?
Well, that's a great area. The Ninth Ward is a fantastic area to talk about this particular subject, because the Ninth Ward has the most immigrant and minority-owned businesses of any ward in the city. We have made a history of working and fighting against the kind of exclusionary tactics and the history of non-acceptance that you're talking about in terms of minority-owned operations. So it's a great success story on one hand, in that we've come a long way. But at the same time, if you look at the kind of distress that we're in right now as a result, not just of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the protests and the destructive demonstrations that occurred last summer, we're really in a crisis situation in terms of maybe losing some of the ground that we've gained in that area. There are a lot of things that we can do, from mentorship programs and starting at a very early age with kids in middle school and high school, developing their sense and understanding of what it means to be a business owner, prioritizing that kind of field, that kind of work, entrepreneurial opportunities, grants, internships, apprenticeships with other business owners, where we bring in members of immigrant communities, members of minority communities, to show them the ropes, as it were, in terms of some of these business ideas. Just expanding the innovative capabilities of our minority communities. We have some of the greatest ideas and the greatest advanced and forward-thinking projects that come out. A lot of the Fortune 500 companies that are at the top of the list today are being expanded and founded by immigrants and minority community members. So this is something that we really have to purposefully target, focus on, and capitalize on, kind of capturing this spirit of entrepreneurship within that already naturally exists within these communities, and promoting that and really working to make sure that's a highlight. Now, to get back to the first thing you said, how are we going to revitalize the critical business corridors in the Ninth Ward? Well, number one, we have to do something about this public safety issue. It won't matter what our businesses look like. They could look like $1 million. But if people don't feel safe patronizing these businesses, they're not going to have the customers. So we absolutely have to do something about this public safety situation that is really at crisis mode. We saw it again this weekend, right there in the very areas that we've been focusing on, that we've been trying to deal with. Problems explode again, and they will continue to explode if we don't effectively and efficiently and intelligently amass a set of strategies that acknowledges and recognizes what a significant problem this is.
So tell me what happened this weekend. Tell me.
Yeah. Well, there was at least, I don't know, 6 or 8 different shootings. I mean, I can't even count how many people got shot, to be honest with you. I don't even want to put a number on it because I don't even know. The stories were coming in so fast and furious, over north, over south, downtown. I don't want to call it a war zone, Al, but it's a traumatic experience to be living in this city right now. Just listening to the gunshots, let alone being affected by the gunshots. I don't remember how old the girl was at her friend's birthday party. They don't deserve this. The children of our community don't deserve to have to struggle with the kind of level of gun violence that they're dealing with right now. And I probably don't have to tell anybody that's a part of this forum today that a big part of the reason why we have failed thus far to properly address this issue is because when you look at the victims of gun violence in this city, they have one thing in common. They are mostly our brown and black community members, whether it's kids, teenagers, young adults, even the older people. The people who are being struck down and really harmed by gun violence are the black and brown community. And we have to treat this as the kind of legitimate epidemic level crisis that it is, and start to bring to bear the kind of strategies and intelligent sets of methodologies that it's going to take to properly address this and start to limit this.
I'm going to come back to that because I want to go deeper on that. Let me swing to North Minneapolis to Adwa Pugh. She's here representing a friend of hers and a colleague of ours, Kathy Spann, who's thrown her head in the ring to run for city council in 5th Ward. Kathy was going to be here and just couldn't make it today, but has a great friend and advocate and supporter in Adwa. Adwa, how you doing?
Adway, yep, I'm fine, Al. How you doing?
Adway, thank you for correcting me. I'm doing well too. So talk about Kathy's candidacy, just broadly, but then I really want to hear about you and your neighborhood and how you feel as a resident and how you want a candidate that you can support to address issues that are important to you.
Well, thank you for having me, Al, as always. I live in North Minneapolis, and it's scary to live here. We were just talking about it this morning, about it's actually unnerving, because it's always gunshots at all hours of the day. It doesn't matter. It's 24 hours a day, at any time, randomly, there's just gunshots. And my biggest fear, and I've been saying this from the beginning, that bullets are going to, because bullets don't have a name on them, are just going to come in my house. We're sitting here watching television, and a bullet is just going, straight bullet is just going to come in the house and shoot one of us while we're sitting here watching television. That's a scary and unsettling feeling to have constantly. I'm almost at the point where I said I wasn't gonna move and I wasn't gonna sell my house, but I don't know. It's a toss up because, and then I don't want to because I'm kind of thinking somebody somewhere, that's what they want me to do.
Yeah.
That's what they want all of us to do.
Yep.
Because to get us gone. I've said that before on your show, Al, that I somehow think that this is and people might say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I truly, truly believe that all of this violence that's taking place, some of it is orchestrated. Because what I know about people that live in North Minneapolis, people that live in North Minneapolis love North Minneapolis. So either it's people from the outside coming in causing problems or something else, because people that live, anybody here that's on this call that knows that live, if you live in people, you talk to people that live in North Minneapolis, they love it here. They wouldn't live anywhere else. I know I wouldn't. And it's not because I own my home. It's because this is a plethora of people, cultures, life. It's amazing in North Minneapolis. The neighbors come through. We look out for each other. There's no place like it besides where I come from, and that was in Chicago, my neighborhood in Chicago, when I was a little girl. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I fell in love with North Minneapolis, because this neighborhood reminded me of my neighborhood from home, where I grew up. Kathy Spann has been a resident, and she has worked, lived, and played in North Minneapolis for 25 years. She has given her heart and soul to this community. That's why I back Kathy Spann. That's why I support her. Kathy Spann is my mentor. She's my friend. She's my sister. We talk all the time. Kathy Spann has done a lot for this community. And she currently is the executive director of Jordan Area Community Council. And it's like people call her all the time because not only does she have a passion for the work, but she takes action. The thing I say about Kathy Spann all the time is that if you don't see her, you gonna hear her. Cause she's coming and you gonna know she coming about a block away, cause that's the type of energy that she brings coming into a room. She ain't even came in the room yet. And she is just an amazing person. And I'm grateful to call her my friend. And I'm grateful to support her because of her 25 years of experience. I'm not knocking anybody else. I believe everybody has something to offer, but Kathy Spann has experience, and she has been endorsed by Operation Safety Now. And they understand that Kathy Spann, like most people that know her, understand that Kathy Spann has 3 topics that she's going to focus on once she's elected. Public safety, housing, and employment. But right now, public safety is taking a front seat to everything, because if we can't feel safe, then we can't live. And so from what I understand today, there's supposed to be a press conference, another press conference. And so I don't know, but what I do know, I don't know what the outcome of the press conference is going to be because it hasn't taken place yet. But what I do know is that we need the both and approach. We need community and police working together to come up with some type of solution to make our communities safer. That's what I know, because I don't feel safe, and everybody that I talk to don't either.
Let me bring one more voice then. Candidate Tekin Zia Aida, who is running for city council in Ward 7. Ward 7 sort of centers on the uptown neighborhood, right, Tekin, or Franklin, uptown area? What's the best description of Ward 7?
Half of downtown, lowering Elliott into uptown.
Okay, great. And talk about, as always, who you are and why you're running, what your points of a platform are, why it's important for people to hear you, and why you're looking for their votes. And you might reflect on some of the things both Mickey Moore and Adwa have addressed. And after that, I want to ask Diana and Andrew to join me with either questions, comments, feedback. So this is a discussion of the community. But Brother Tekken, good to see you again, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, as always, for the invitation.
I don't know if you were here, but I said at the beginning of the show that we've enhanced this program because we're now operating and broadcasting nationally through the website, the Facebook page of the Black Press of America. And so I think that's so important because what we're doing locally is a reflection of what's happening globally. Local and global, one and the same.
Who'd have thunk, right, that Minneapolis would be, except for those of us who lived here and have lived here, right, or even grown up here, who'd have thought that Minneapolis would be the epicenter of a global movement for justice, right? Mm-hmm. So I too come to the table, enter this race with a lot of experience. That experience, first and foremost, as an immigrant, a child, a toddler who was brought here and raised in Minnesota. That's the number one experience that I'm bringing to the table. 2 weeks after graduating from high school, I moved to Minneapolis, downtown. I mean, I had a relationship prior, but started coming in 93, moved in 94. So I think I'm going on 27 years of experience living in the city of Minneapolis. In 1996, I started a business called Vision Models Vision Management Group that lasted 22 years. So I am bringing 22 years of business experience in the warehouse district here downtown Minneapolis. You can hear out my window, as Mickey was talking about, all the sirens that are going on. We all just want to get back to running our business. But like Mickey was saying, we're not going to be able to do that. And Adwa, if I'm hopefully saying, Adwe was saying, we're not going to be able to get back to running our business until we have stabilized the city. And so that 27-year relationship with the city, 22 years in business, the deep relationships that come with that, just in the community, in the business community, in the philanthropic arena, you name it. I am a candidate amongst, I think, a few others that are even represented here today, that are running on a platform that is not just kind of poof coming out of air, right? But on a platform that has been seasoned and cultivated over decades of experiences. In addition to, like I said, growing up a Black child, an immigrant child who looked and sounded funny in Minnesota, I have a perspective that I think, and the people who support me, think is important to bring to the table at this most crucial time. We have an opportunity to really correct some of the systems that you were talking about earlier when we were even talking about being included in the business community. I think, Mickey, that's kind of what you were speaking about when I first came in, is that we have an opportunity now to include everyone in what I'm talking about is the next Minneapolis miracle. And so, that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm talking about and what I bring.
Okay, so I want to have Andrew and Diana to jump in the conversation. Diana, first of all, have you jump on board. As always, Diana, thank you for your leadership and participation, your friendship. We've been working together a long time, and it's always a pleasure to work with you. And I've come to have deep and warm feelings for Andrew Bornhoff as just a sincere guy and a good guy who's committed to the community and committed to you and to me. And I think we're committed to him as well. So all of it in the name and the spirit of community. I thank both of you. What are you thinking as you listen to Tekken and Mickey Moore and Adway on behalf of our mutual friend, Kathy Spann? What are your thoughts?
Well, Al, I'm going to be honest. I think all three of them are absolutely correct. I think we need to wipe the slate completely clean, get new leadership in here. You know what I mean? Let's move this forward. We have people that have been sitting in city council since I first came here.
Yes.
And
I'm
nothing has changed with these people that have been sitting there. So why not? I mean, just like they're saying we need to make changes in the police, let's make changes in this leadership, because we have to have this. I mean, this is crazy. 8-year-olds, 10 years old, getting shot in the head. I mean, I'm with you, Agwe. I'm really scared to go to work, because you just don't know. So I'm thinking all of these candidates that are running, I think even those that don't win, you need to throw these ideas in some kind of strategic bucket, and let's make a difference. Let's make a change, because it can happen. Andrew? I think.
Yeah, Diana, I'm in the same boat. You and I talk about that all the time about, this concern of even going to our office. I think, part of it that I worry about is people, in order to support change, you need, or to have change within this, within City Hall, you have to have residents who are willing to support change, and to elect that change. And, I don't know who originally said it, but the famous quote is, the only thing harder than what is it? About, I'm butchering it now, but the status quo, right? It's impossible to change status quo. People want change, but they don't want it as much as, well, I don't want to shake things up. And from my perspective, where I look at, we still, though Minneapolis every day is becoming a more and more diverse city, and I'm so thrilled and excited to see that. I'm reminded of Betsy Hodges, former Mayor Betsy Hodges' opinion piece in the New York Times last summer or last spring, after George Floyd was murdered, talking about how a large percentage of white Minneapolis has kind of a silent contract with the systemic racism of this city, and just kind of getting by on how things have been. And yes, that's so sad, but my life is fine over here. And I think we need to make people uncomfortable. We need to make sure that they understand change is uncomfortable. It's difficult, but it's necessary if you really want to put actions to your words. So, for me, when we see kids getting shot in the head and not even being on the front page of the Star Tribune, right? What are we doing here? Is this a city that has kind of fallen back into a lull, or do we really have the energy to elect the change we need?
And that's so important. Even when we were, Mickey and I just came through the DFL delegate process. And, that's what I was talking about is, please come on board, become a delegate of change, right? In my ward, I'm taking on a 24-year incumbent. Deep relationships, similar to those that I had in business. I get that. But again, I'm concerned that I'm not convinced that she has any more magic rabbits in her bag after 24 years of service. And so, like others have said, it's time to, if there are people who are qualified, your neighbors who are standing up to be run for office and who are qualified, let's take that opportunity to pass the baton, right? The problem that I'm sensing for all of us is that people are afraid. And similar to, and I'm sorry, I'm usually good at names, Adwe, okay.
Yes.
Adwe.
Adwe.
Adwe. Got it.
Yes.
It's similar to as what Adwe was saying, is that I'm sorry, I believe that a lot of this has been constructed on purpose. And I do ultimately believe that it is constructed as such to compel average, hardworking, God-fearing Minneapolitans to say, hey, I'm out, cash in, sell their home, and bounce. Because again, and I know people want to snicker and snore at me, but the George Floyd destruction map was a dead ringer overlay for the Minneapolis 2040 projected development map. So the areas of maximum impact were the exact areas where the 2040 map wanted to project the most new development. Lake and Hiawatha, Uptown, parts over here, over north, on the north side. And so this is the conundrum that Adwe was illustrating for all of us. Is like, hey, do we stay here and fight for the city that we love, or do we succumb to the fear and the violence and the rhetorical chaos that is emanating from City Hall?
Mickey Moore jumped in. Mickey Moore.
If I could just say that I have a lot of people in my ward that have already moved out or are planning to move out. Yep. And I don't want, and I know Tekken didn't mean for this to sound like like they're somehow betraying their community or anything like that. It's really just a matter of personal safety. Not anything against. If Adwe decides to move out, it's because she's fearing for her life and the life of her own family. So these aren't wrong decisions by any means.
That's right.
Difficult, very complicated, heartbreaking decisions.
Absolutely, and that's what it is, that we're all being put into this really difficult situation.
So last week we went on vacation. Our flight got in around 11:30, so we pulled in our carport about 1 o'clock in the morning. We're pulling our bags out of the car, and we heard pop, 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 right? And we were like, yep, we're home. How horrible is that to say when you get out your car coming home from vacation? That's one thing I got to say. The other thing I would like to add, and this is Adwe speaking. This is not on behalf of Kathy Span. This is Adwe speaking, okay? So I sat back and I thought about this. And I thought about the police chief, and I thought about the position that he's in, because the fact of the matter is that Chief Arredondo was born a Black man, right? Who was hired to be the police chief, right? But before he was hired to be the police chief, he was a police officer. He chose a career to be a police officer, right? And he sued the city, and he won. And then they asked him to step up to be the police chief. And he took the job thinking that he could make a difference, because he knew that there were problems, because again, he sued the city and won, right? The people that are working against him, they're supposed to be working with him, which is city council. They were elected to do a job. They weren't hired. So the people that were elected by the people to do a job is not allowing the person that was hired to do the job. Does that make sense to anybody besides?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. They didn't allow Barack Obama to do his job.
Exactly.
Those of us who have been in business know that to be Black and in business, you are hardly ever allowed to do your job.
Exactly.
And Mickey, I don't want to speak for you, but that's also in the back of my mind. Is that, I don't agree with everything that our chief has done.
Right.
But as a fellow man of color, a fellow Black man,
yes,
my first instinct is to do whatever I can to do the best to try and support him.
Allow the man to do his job is what I'm saying. They're not even allowing him to do his job. You're saying they just they're not allowing him to do his job. They're not allowing him. Allow the man to do his job is all I'm saying.
Yes.
Especially
and support him.
You are elected to support him. Yes.
And to become, more transparent. To bring him into the sunlight of transparency and accountability. But he cannot, I am believing, do that if he's constantly fighting, 12 or 10 or whatever it might be.
Let me ask everybody on the panel today to see if you've been following what's happening in Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park. A couple of reasons, a couple of angles. Brooklyn Center, obviously, the scene of the death of Dante Wright, another young Black man killed at the hand of a sworn officer who has since resigned and who was going to be charged, I believe, or is charged with second-degree manslaughter, I think is the charge so far, or is the expected charge. So as a result of that shooting, the same thing happened in Brooklyn Center that happened at a smaller scale in South Minneapolis and St. Paul and North Side last year. So the potential for disruptions occurred, protests nightly, a lot of people who lived in the neighborhood stressed out by tear gas and lights and sirens and stuff like that, and just the constant back and forth between National Guard, I think it was out there, National Guard, and sheriffs and police departments. So as a consequence, Mike Elliott, the mayor of Brooklyn Center, a young black man, has advanced an ordinance called the Dante Wright, and I'll think of the full name of it. There's another young man who was killed in Brooklyn Center recently, who was a person on the autism spectrum, and who, in a tragic way, was also killed by the police. Right. So
Kobe, was it Kobe?
Kobe, that's it. Yeah, Kobe.
Yep.
So they had a 3-hour almost city council meeting Saturday, which I streamed both locally and nationally. It was fascinating. Yeah. Did any of you watch any of that? I can say that the outcome was that they passed the resolution, but you could tell there was pushback. Diana, what did you think about? Talk about that if you would. And the reason it's important to me is that Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center, I believe, are bellwethers for what's going to be happening in Minneapolis and St. Paul. These are neighborhoods or towns that are majority people of color. Whites are in the minority in Brooklyn Center and in Brooklyn Park. And these are also dynamic neighborhoods because there's the traditional African-American population plus newly arrived Africans from Liberia, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, also from the Caribbean, and South America. So it's a big dynamic there. And all of that is going to be how Minneapolis and St. Paul look in 15 years as well. So we're looking at the future, and I'm kind of pleased that they were able to present an argument that ended up winning a 4-1 approval from the city council. Diana, talk about that if you would, Diana, and anybody else jump in on that.
Well, it's interesting because I live right on the cusp of Minneapolis and Brooklyn Center. And I know the mayor and I know Councilmember April Graves, and their conversation and the action that they took to get this resolved quickly was fascinating, because here we are in Minneapolis. George Floyd, it's been almost a year and nothing has happened. These city council in Brooklyn Center, they came together and they said, we need to get this done now. They did not play around. They came together. Why are we not doing this in Minneapolis? As Elliott said, the mayor, what happened in Brooklyn Center is a treasure to Minneapolis and St. Paul, and you need to get on board and make some changes. That's the only way. I mean, look how quick this happened. Like you said, 3 hours, boom, they passed this. They're not playing. They're not going to tolerate this nonsense in Brooklyn Center.
Do you think, though, Diana, that goes back to what Al was talking about, that quiet, how did you put it, Mr. McFarlane, that unspoken of pact that, kind of progressive or liberal Minneapolis has with the racist status quo? Do you think that's why?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
I think Andrew made that point. Andrew, you talked about that.
Andrew.
Yeah. As a white man who grew up in Minneapolis and South Minneapolis and still lives in South Minneapolis, I think there definitely is there is a appreciated status quo among whites in the city, that no matter what happens, or almost what happens, you're okay. And so, yes, you can be outraged, but you can be outraged from a distance.
Right.
Yes, you can be upset and call for change, but you can do that from a distance. And that's what needs to change. And that's what needs to, what's really going to affect the change that we need in the city.
Right.
And that's orchestrated. I mean, over the history of our city, the reason why we have 13 wards instead of 6 or 7, which is really all a city this size needs, is so that we can have a plethora, a vast majority of well taken care of wards. 10 of our 13 wards don't have these problems. And so whenever there's a vote, whenever there's a concern, the vast majority of wards can count on each other to back each other up. There are just like the history of Minneapolis and the history of Minnesota, but the history of our city is that there is a minority of minorities. And that same thing happens within our political structure. There is a minority of problem wards, and 3 wards out of 13 is not enough to make change. So we have to somehow begin a cooperative collaboration throughout our entire city, which means we need to bring all of these wards on board. And with a lot of issues, they're not willing to get on board.
But that's one of the reasons why my particular candidacy in the 7th Ward, I believe, is so important. I'm a bridge. I'm not going to be there forever, but I'm there to hopefully bring the 7th Ward back to the city. You know what I mean? We can afford to get involved and defend those other, those 3 wards that have less of a voice due to structural mechanics, architecture of how our city is built along red lines. The fact that I was adopted and raised by white people, the fact that the fact that I was in business, the fact that I've lived all my time for the most part here in the 7th Ward and done the things that I've done in art, business, philanthropy, what have you, my candidacy is to hopefully help to ease some of those things that Mickey was just speaking.
I believe that Kathy's passion will come through in this area because Kathy partners. She loves to partner. Diana know that. She will pull in a partner if it's something, because when she gets ready to take action, she knows that she can't do it alone. Her motto is when I go downtown, we're all going downtown, because she is going to build a bridge. She gonna knock down the bridge. She gonna landscape a bridge. She gonna do all of that to get some partners to get together to make what needs to happen. And that's why Kathy has 25 years experience, because she has been doing the same thing and partnering for 25 years with other organizations to take action to make things happen. And I think that Kathy Spann, I know Kathy Spann is the first choice and the only choice for 5th Ward City Council.
We're coming to the end of our hour. I want to give each of the candidates another minute or two just to sort of summarize and ask Diana and Andrew if you have another question or comment to throw that in now, or maybe you have announcements of things that are going on in the community that you want people to be aware of. Let me start with Andrew and Diana first. If any either final questions, Andrew, or announcements from Hawthorne?
Diana, I'll let you handle the announcements in case I'm missing something. But I guess my only question, and I'm always kind of harping on this just because as residents of the city, at least I feel like we're on an island surrounded by a bunch of people who don't care. What are you looking for as a candidate for reaching out to colleagues or state representatives you're going to rely on for funding who maybe disagree with a lot of the stances that most of us in the city take?
I just kind of want to remind everybody, Elle, that even though some of the restrictions have been lifted, that we still need to mask up and we still need to be cautious. It's getting warm out. People are going out for walks, which they need to exercise. But all in all, we have to we have to be cautious in addition to May, this is Mental Health Month, and I've been dealing with a lot of phone calls around mental health. So if you know somebody that's going through something, just call them up, give them a hug, something, because people are struggling right now. That's what I want to say.
I want to throw in a comment from our friend Michelle Madison, who says she worries about her son who's in Virginia Beach every day because he's 31 and she has 3 grandchildren, grandsons, as a matter of fact. And so therefore she's worried. And she says the change has to come. Michelle, thank you so much for being with us every day. We really appreciate your comments and your questions and your commentary. So candidates, starting with Mickey, then Tegan, and then on behalf of Kathy Span, final words. Mickey?
Well, let me just play off of what Diana just said. There's a lot of people in our community that still haven't gotten their vaccine. This is something you really need to take seriously. Just get your vaccine. It takes you off the list. It takes you off the list of eligible infected people. And that's important for everybody. It's important for you. It's important for your family. It's also important for the rest of the community. So I would just really encourage people to get their vaccine. It's not complicated now. You can literally walk in most places and get it done. So now's the time to take advantage of that ease of access. Then I just want to touch on one thing that Adaway said. We talk a lot about public safety in the Ninth Ward. It's critical number one crisis issue. We talk a lot about business revitalization in the Ninth Ward. Number two, maybe a close second critical issue. One of the things that the residents talk about that a lot of people don't hear is how disconnected they feel from their city government, from their elected officials, from having a voice, from feeling heard by our city. And that's something that we're really working hard to change. My campaign has been focused on this from the very beginning. The first thing we said we were going to do was open up a local ward office that's open every day, accessible to all the residents and business owners for everything that they need without any appointment. Now, a lot of the other candidates in my ward picked up on that. They're talking about that too. But that's one of the key moves that we want to make, along with our pledge to attend every neighborhood association meeting, along with our pledge to host all kinds of very focused and targeted town hall and organizational meetings where we bring in the immigrant community, where we bring in the LGBTQIA plus community, where we bring in business owners, where we bring in renters and just listen to what their concerns, problems, and issues are so that we can take their voice down to City Hall and advocate for their needs and what they really deserve. So I think, a lot of times we get distracted with these critical issues, but there's an overriding undercurrent of need within the entire city of Minneapolis of proper, appropriate, responsive representation. And that's where you need a professional that's got discipline, that knows that words matter and can take care of their messaging and don't let wild ideas slip out as an elected official. So I think that's something that we're really focused on, and partnering with our community and partnering with our residents and business owners and really allowing them to feel that finally they are heard and that they've got a seat at the table of decision making.
Tekin, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with what my Diana was saying. Let's mask up. Let's do what we need to do to keep each other safe. I agree wholeheartedly with what Mickey just said. We've got to move beyond performance and rhetoric to actually getting the work done. And we need to represent true representative democracy in Minneapolis. We've been kind of taken for decades, quite frankly, in a whole different direction from where the people of Minneapolis wanted our city to go. But I wanted to just say, Michelle, I think that's the woman who is joining us from in the text. I agree with you. I understand. I worry about the children in my family. When Dante Wright was killed, I think I had told this group, my nephew had played ball with him. I mean, it was that close to home. My nephew, that means he could have been, it could have been my nephew killed. Why are things getting done quickly in Brooklyn Park or Center? Why could things possibly get taken care of more quickly and professionally here in Minneapolis? I think it's a question of priorities and a question of having skin in the game. And I can say, having a family of children of color, mostly Black and brown children, I have skin in the game. In my ward, being the one person who looks like those who are normally gunned down either in gang violence, police violence, or economic violence, I look like that. I reflect those communities. I have a vested interest in seeing resolution and making change. And so I just want to say to her is that that resonates with me. I had to take a few weeks off from even dealing with some of this just to heal my own self and recalibrate my own mind as I approach this race.
Edway?
Kathy Spann has heart, she has compassion, and she has 25 years experience. In working, living, and playing in North Minneapolis, Kathy Spann is the first choice and only choice for Ward 5 City Council.
Thank you so much. Straightforward, straight to the point. Listen, this is just a wonderful opportunity every week. Join us again, candidates. We welcome you back. Tell other candidates to come. We think we all win when we share from our heart and from our experience and share our aspirations. And even if we argue, it's okay. It's a good thing to argue because the argument is done in a spirit of illumination and of sharpening. So that people have different ways to look at different situations. So again, thank you for those who are joining us on Facebook here in the Midwest, or those joining from the NNPA, National Newspaper Publishers Association Facebook, Black Press USA. Thanks to those who are connecting by YouTube. If you're on YouTube, help us grow this platform. Subscribe and share this to your networks. I'm Alan McFarlane. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.